Think a lot about life and death, what could have been. Thinking about how it'd be different if I could just do it again. Spent a lot of time dreaming about goals and things, thinking about how it'd be different if I could just grow some wings. The money I'd make and the chances I'd take, all the things that will never be. That's why I got to live right now, take this solemn vow to be the best of me.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. This month is Teacher Appreciation Month, and Farmer Joe's wants our educators to know that they appreciate you year-round. Every Wednesday, all teachers receive a 10% discount on their entire grocery order. So we appreciate you not just this month, but every month. As a matter of fact, the fine folks at Farmer Joe's appreciates our entire community. Our beloved seniors gets a discount on Mondays. On Tuesday, our veterans and nurses get a discount. Wednesdays is for our teachers. And then also Thursdays is for our first responders, and we thank you for everything you do. And you don't want to miss Farmer Joe's local vendor special 2-day event. That is May 18th and 19th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. There'll be free ice cream for the kids and free face painting. And come check out the local vendors who also supports Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, everything you need and more, Lee County's greatest grocery store. So watch this show, like, share, subscribe, and then immediately go to Farmer Joe's. As always, we're grateful to have veteran political analyst, businessman, attorney, multimedia commentator, Mr. Ford O'Connell with us. Ford is truly one of the most knowledgeable political minds in our part of paradise. You can find him on FordO'Connell.com. You can find him on Ford O'Connell on X and most reputable news outlets. Ford, I want to have to discuss the utter failure of Michael Cohen, the lead witness for the prosecution in the case that is nothing less than political warfare. They have no reasonable grounds to continue with the case. From what I have seen, it has been nothing more than embarrassment to our country's legal system. And before we get into it, I do want to show this clip and your legal expertise. I would like for you to help me out with this.
Phone call that Michael Cohen says took place. Cohen testified that he called Trump's head of security and told him that the Stormy payment was taken care of. That was the big link between Trump and the money. Today it came out the call never happened. Trump's defense lawyers showed Cohen a sheet of text messages on the night he claims he made that call. Turns out Cohen had been getting prank calls from a 14-year-old and called Trump's security chief to ask if he could sic the Secret Service on him. Trump's defense attorney raising his voice, zeroing in on Cohen. That was a lie. You did not talk to President Trump. Cohen panicked, shifted in his seat, voice cracking. I'm not certain that's accurate, but the call logs don't lie. It was a Perry Mason moment. Sources inside the courtroom tell us the entire jury's jaw hit the floor. And never Trump or George Conway put his hands to his face and stared at the ceiling. CNN couldn't believe it.
Michael Cohen was cornered in what appeared to be a lie.
I don't think I've ever seen a star cooperating witness get his knees chopped out quite as clearly and dramatically as what just happened with Michael Cohen.
This does seem pretty bad, though.
This does seem, I feel like there are a lot of questions that have been raised.
I think if I was a juror in this case, watching that, I would think this guy's making this up as he's going along.
Donald Trump called it fascinating.
I think it was a very interesting day. It was a fascinating day. And it shows what a scam this whole thing is. I'm spending a lot of time and I'm spending a lot of money, which is what they want. They want me to spend my time and my money. And I'm willing to do it because ultimately we have to fight for the Constitution.
The entire testimony was a disaster. Trump's lawyer played for the jury. Michael Cohen sounding like a lunatic on his podcasts. A very different Michael Cohen from what the jury had seen inside of court.
I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. It won't bring back the year that I lost or the damage done to my family, but revenge is a dish best served cold. And you better believe I want this man to go down and rot inside for what he did to me and my family. He is about to get a taste of what I went through, and I promise you, it's not fun.
Jurors peered up at Cohen while the tape played. They were embarrassed for him. Cohen looked down at the ground, also embarrassed. Imagine being a juror, listening, and realize you just spent your whole month away from work, away from your family, to listen to a case in which the star witness is exposed as a fanatic, seeking revenge on the defendant. At one point, the lawyer says, "Did you ever ask for a pardon?" Cohen says no. Then the lawyer pulled out a deposition where Cohen asked for a pardon. The whole courtroom just shakes their head. The defense painted a picture of a jilted lawyer who'd been passed over for White House chief of staff and was forced to admit under oath that he had a vendetta against Trump. If you're a juror and you hear the star witness say that, not good. Michael Cohen's former lawyer told Fox this morning that Cohen said he never had anything on Trump, which would make sense because if Cohen did have dirt on Donald, he would have handed it to the feds on a silver platter to stay out of prison.
Besides making that statement, I swear to God, I don't have anything on Donald Trump, he also said more times than that answer, guys, I want you to understand, I will do whatever the F I have to do. I will never spend a day in jail. And then he'd slam his hand on the conference room table.
Well, Ford, there you have it. I mean, look, that is their key witness, Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer. Why this? To me, I think this should be done with. That trial should have. Somebody should make a motion to dismiss on the fact that their evidence is flawed and tainted, and just be done with this.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche's lead attorney, is going to make a motion to dismiss next week. And unfortunately, Judge Juan Merchan is likely not to accept that motion to dismiss because he's a Democratic operative who really doesn't care if he's overturned on appeal so long as Trump is convicted of something. And that's really what's going on here. And to your point, Michael Cohen, this entire case hinges on Michael Cohen's testimony. And as you've seen, the defense has done a great job making the case that he's a serial liar who has a motivation to lie and wants to get revenge on Donald Trump. You know, the only other thing that I think if I'm the defense that you want to drive home to this jury, because remember, we're dealing with a Manhattan jury, one that 87% of which voted for Joe Biden. The only thing that I would want to make sure that the jury knows before it goes into deliberation during closing arguments is that NDAs are not illegal. And the idea of it's not a campaign finance violation. That's the only two things. If you do that, the prosecution has not met the burden to proof against Donald Trump. And they haven't even established the elements of a crime. Namely, they have not established the element that Donald Trump had fraudulent intent to conceal another crime, which they refused to name.
Well, look, and you know, this is going to a jury. We have a jury already selected, a far liberal one at that. But they have to prove this man guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. All right? How can they do that now? It seems that there is no possible way. I don't even see how the hand of God could come down and strike this as being not reasonable doubt at this point.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Here's what Alvin Bragg, the district attorney of Manhattan, is banking on. He's banking on a jury that hates Trump and a judge who hates Trump to manufacture an illegitimate conviction of Donald Trump. That's essentially his entire game plan. What's happened here is Todd Blanche, the lead attorney for Trump, knows that two of the jurors are lawyers. And what he is speaking to are two of those jurors and saying, look, you're lawyers. You understand beyond a reasonable doubt. This isn't about who you like, who it isn't. They have not proven their case. And he's banking that these two lawyers are going to basically come up with either an acquittal or a hung jury. Either way, Donald Trump wins.
Yeah, I just think they these poor jurors, and I say poor jurors, they're liberal. They're probably loving every minute of it. They're sitting there trying to crucify the one great president as far as conservatives feel like we had in generations. And now they're trying to sit there and be part of the crucifixion. Maybe, but if I sat there for 18 days forward, I'd be a little upset.
Yeah, look, this is the criminalization of politics. This is what we call lawfare. That's why this case was brought in Manhattan. Robert Costello, who you had on earlier in that montage, it made the point that when the feds heard his testimony, they refused to bring the case. Then he gave the testimony to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office a year ago, and they still went forward with the case, trying to cherry pick what he said so that they would indict him. This is all about basically getting a conviction to harm Trump politically. That's all this is about, and that's why it was brought in Manhattan. I mean, just imagine, put the shoe on the other foot, right? You basically bring a case against Joe Biden in Little Rock, Arkansas. I mean, that's exactly what's going on here. This has got to stop. It's an abuse of the legal system and it's election interference. And unfortunately, outside of the conservative networks, they're not telling the truth. Now, CNN is starting to tell the truth. Even MSDNC is shuddering every now and then because they realize what a giant flop this is. And in fact, they're all bemoaning the fact, not that the legal system isn't working, they're bemoaning the fact that if they don't convict him, he might actually win the presidency.
Right. And so I said, even if he sits in jail, it's not going to hurt his campaign. He's still going to have the supporters. This ain't no longer a movement of I always vote the R, I always vote the D. This is a movement of good versus evil, common sense versus ignorance, and to prove. And I tell you who asked the top of this case was Miss Stefanik last night. I don't know if you've seen the House Weaponizations Committee hearing. And I don't know if you got to see it, but I got a clip. And after watching this witness testify, I'm sitting there and I'm like slapping myself in the head. Everybody can see this on both sides. You've got Democrats, you've got Republicans. How can you not decipher how bad this is? This is nothing more than weaponization of political run for political office. Let me play this and let's talk about this. This is a little longer one.
Ms. Stefanik, for 5 minutes.
Oh, I love being able to respond to the novice from New York. First of all, thank you so much for stating the obvious that political lawfare is in fact election interference. That's what we're seeing with the sham Alvin Bragg trial. Thank you also to the novice freshman member for New York, highlighting that withholding military aid to an ally for a political purpose, just like Joe Biden is doing to Israel. Always grateful for you stepping in it. Mr. Costello, in your opening statement, you said that in the over 50 years serving as a lawyer, you, quote, have never seen the types of politically motivated cases that have been brought in this presidential election season. These political cases are being used as a weapon of war to damage, defeat, or impede political adversaries and their allies. Instead of political warfare, it is lawfare, a cancer upon our collective judicial system. I want to begin with Alvin Bragg's weaponized sham trial in New York. Isn't it true that in Alvin Bragg's campaign for Manhattan DA, Bragg specifically ran on going after President Donald Trump?
That is true.
Isn't it true that Bragg's predecessor, Cy Vance, declined to prosecute President Trump?
That is true.
And the FEC also did not prosecute President Trump?
That is true.
And the DOJ did not prosecute President Trump in this case.
The DOJ referring to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District?
Correct.
Absolutely true.
And one of the reasons the Southern District of New York turned down this case was because the supposed star witness, according to Alvin Bragg, Michael Cohen, was totally, quote, unworthy of belief. Isn't that true?
Without a doubt.
This is the same Michael Cohen who pled guilty to 7 counts in an indictment that had absolutely nothing to do with President Trump and actually predated the first time he met President Trump, correct?
Absolutely true.
And in fact, this is the same Michael Cohen who perjured himself to Congress. Isn't that true?
Yes.
In fact, when called as a witness in this sham trial, Cohen was asked directly if he was honest during his testimony to Congress. He said no, admitting perjury. But it's not just Bragg's case that is a total sham and illegal political lawfare going after Joe Biden's top political opponent, Donald Trump. This rot goes deep all the way up to the top in the Oval Office. Because when Congress referred this admission of Cohen's perjury to Joe Biden's DOJ, isn't it true that the DOJ has refused to prosecute?
That is true.
Isn't it correct that Michael Colangelo, who was the 3rd highest ranking official in Biden's DOJ, was transferred to Bragg's office to run this weaponized prosecution of President Trump? Isn't that true?
Not only true, but it's unheard of.
Unheard of. It's a disgrace. Do you agree that this weaponization of lawfare goes straight to the top with the purpose of helping Joe Biden's failing presidential campaign?
The circumstantial evidence definitely supports that.
And the unconstitutional gag order on President Trump from New York Judge Merchant is unprecedented lawfare.
As far as I know, absolutely.
And let's go to the daughter of the judge. Isn't it true that she is raising millions of dollars off of this sham case?
Well, I have to say I've read that in the media. I don't know it of my own knowledge.
It is true.
Thank you.
One additional question. I want to talk about the rigged and unprecedented jury selection process. Isn't it true that Bragg's team asked the jurors if they followed Trump on social media?
Yes.
And isn't it true that they did not ask any of the potential jurors if they followed Biden on social media?
Or Michael Cohen.
Or Michael
Yes.
Cohen.
Yeah.
And isn't it true that 87% of the jurors said they voted for Joe Biden?
That's true.
Is this unprecedented and lawfare jury shopping?
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Political lawfare for the purpose of election interference to go after Donald Trump. Do you agree?
Totally.
Now, Ford, it don't get no clearer than that. And nobody objected to a word that man said.
Wait, let's put it this way. Elise Stefanik, tied that up very well. Okay, let's understand who the gentleman who was talking is. That's Robert Costello, who's a esteemed defense lawyer in New York for a very long time. He was Michael Cohen's legal advisor. He was released from his attorney-client privilege to basically tell everyone that Michael Cohen is lying. He has nothing on Donald Trump. He acted on his own when it came to Stormy Daniels, and Donald Trump had no knowledge of it. And basically, he got paid as a legal expense. So the entire Michael Cohen thing's like, but here's what's truly scary about all of this. We know that this is rigged against him because of Manhattan. That's what we call jury shopping. But the craziest thing in there, and it doesn't catch a lot of, regular people's eyes. It only lights up lawyers' eyes. And that is the fact that Matthew Colangelo, who was the number 3 at the DOJ, went all the way down to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office to quarterback this case. Let me explain to you what that's like. That's like saying I'm going to go from the New York Yankees to the Toledo Mud Hens just because, for, how shall I say, shits and giggles. That does not happen. That is why it's so unheard of. That is what is so amazing, is that the White House is openly coordinating this because they know they're looking at the polls. They can't talk about the issues. What is the only way that they can win? By calling Donald Trump a convicted felon. Remember, if Donald Trump gets a hung jury or he gets an acquittal, his numbers are going to take off even more than if he's convicted.
Yeah, well, I heard that Stormy Daniels was hoping for a well-hung jury in this trial, but I'm not sure if that's accurate.
Yeah, well, the craziest part about her is she never should have even been on the stand in the first place. What's crazy is everyone was stipulating, yes, we had an NDA. That's not illegal. And basically she got paid. Remember, everyone say hush money, Stormy Daniels, all these salacious terms. This entire trial is about bookkeeping and records. Yes, they're trying to jail a president of the United States over bookkeeping and records that he had no knowledge of. That is what is so shocking here. It'd be like basically trying to jail Barack Obama over jaywalking. That's how bad this is.
And I want to give the proper credit to the people inside Congress and legislation that are going in Trump's defense. You've had Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds went up there. Look, I think that these politicians that we see what they're bigger in fighting for America first, and I think that any America first politician, whether you're in the Senate, the House, wherever, you need to be standing up for what's right, and standing up for Donald Trump in this trial is the right thing to do. And if you are not, you don't need to be in political office.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'll state it even further. If you're an elected official and you're a Republican and you're not pushing back against this lawfare, you have no business being a Republican, let alone in elected office. Because unfortunately, it's going to take a rude awakening when this happens to Democrats, where they go, oh my gosh, this is so unfair. And what's crazy is only certain outfits cover this. Fox News covers it. Newsmax covers it. One America News covers it. And maybe News Nation covers it a little bit, which is more of, mainstream in the middle. But everyone else just pretends like, oh, well, let's convict him over anything. That is insane. That is so banana republic-like. And now we're descending into the third world country just because Democrats want to hold on to power.
Well, and I don't know if it's something that me and you don't really talk about this a lot, but by your own right, you're a professor, correct?
Yes.
All right. And so with everything that's going on within the colleges right now, and you see these mobs that are anti-Israel and anti-everything else, do you not think that we ought to have people more focused on trying to get our youth better educated than trying to prosecute a man for basically paying for an NDA?
Look, you're absolutely right. Let me just say one thing about what's going on college campuses right now. This is about 2 decades of indoctrination, what we call critical race theory. And what's happening here is in young people's minds, there's 2 groups, oppressors and the oppressed. The oppressed can do no wrong. That's why you saw people burning down buildings during the BLM riots and no one going to jail. And then there's the oppressors, which are basically white men, Jews, you name it. And of course, the oppressors can never do any right, so it's open season on the oppressors. And if the oppressed break any rules out there, it does not matter because they're oppressed. The whole thing is ridiculous. It's destroying America from within because kids today, white, black, rich, poor, otherwise, are being taught to hate America, and that is how you destroy this country from within.
Well, I've said all along, and in my heritage, I've never liked to see anybody claim that they were oppressed, not in this day and time, not in the country we live in. I mean, there's handouts on every corner if you're in need, and I know some are harder to get. And I've said all along, years ago, if you wanted to see what socialism was, go to an Indian reservation.
Let me tell you how professors get around that deal. What they'll tell these kids, by and large, I'm just making a generalization here, I want to be clear. What they say is, socialism works. It just hasn't been done right over the last 1,000 years. It just needs a little bit more push, and then it will work. Even though you'll point out things like Venezuela, you'll point out several African countries, you name it. In our lifetime, I think socialism is like 0-50. But, it's okay. They just think one more little twist and it'll be done right. And remember, the other problem is a lot of these kids, we're talking about people under the age of 35. They're addicted to their phone and they don't know anything before the day they were born. I think the smallest major now in colleges is history. Nobody takes history. Nobody knows history. Nobody cares about history, whether it's political history, sports history, art history, you name it. Nobody knows anything about history. The world began the day they were born.
Yeah, but my point of this is it's not healthy because you basically take a whole group, generations of people, and you make them to where you enable them to where they're dependent on the government. Now, okay, yeah, you give them a casino here and there, but not all reservations get the casinos. You understand?
I certainly understand that, having been to a casino in Hollywood, Florida.
But I just think that people don't realize that we really need to work less on the theatrics of politics and more on trying to educate our youth at what they need to be looking for, the signs. There's signs. Every professor that's ever come out teaching Marxism, socialism, everything, there's a sign that he's going to be that way through his tenure. And colleges need to be looking more into that.
Well, President Trump says that, Joe Biden has bypassed socialism and already gone straight to communism. And unfortunately, that's exactly the MO of the Democratic Party, because by and large, the ones on the federal level believe that America's a rotten country. They may not necessarily say it out loud. We have to destroy America and its institutions and its symbols, because that way then we can reimagine America in the way it should be. And this is a disease that is running throughout the Democratic Party and running in some cases through young Republicans too. And it's very, very dangerous.
Well, and they're in their formative mind. They're learning. Look, at that age, I wasn't sure what I wanted to be. I mean, I'll be quite honest with you. I wished I'd have had a better plan where my life was going to go as I aged. But if I was sitting here listening to one of these socialist preachers of whatever they believe and not realistically looking into weighing it out, because they don't get the way. They are forced to sit in there 3-4 hours and listen to exactly what this person is telling them is the only way to believe.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. When we were younger, you went to school, or if you're lucky enough to go to college, you went there to learn how to think critically. Today, students are taught what to think, not how to think. And that is what is destroying our country.
Well, I know we don't talk a lot about the fact that you're a professor, and I think that weighs a lot of power in behind your knowledge of what's really going on these campuses. And I think that people really ought to know that you really have your finger on the pulse of more than just politics. You're there, you know what's going on these campuses, more so than most.
Yeah, I know. And it's very, very scary, because a lot of people, like yourself, will say, oh, these are young kids. Eventually they're going to turn 40, have kids, want to buy a house, provide for themselves. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of these professors are pushing this nonsense, and it's very, very dangerous. I'm starting to wonder what the value is of a college education if you're not going to teach people to think critically and you're not going to have the free exchange of ideas. I think that is what is hurting us. And that's what we talk about when we say indoctrination. Remember why they want to push this down to kindergartners, because that's when you're in your formative years. That's when you're most malleable. The older you get, the more critical you get of the world around you. And you start thinking, wait a minute, is this a good idea or not? Is this going to harm my family or is it not? Am I going to be able to make money? But right now, they're not thinking that way.
I agree. Well, I wanted to talk to you about these tentative debates between both Joe Biden and Trump. It seems like there's going to be a lot of guidelines made for Biden to actually participate, if he participates at all. Do you believe that they will actually come down to a Biden-Trump debate?
I think we're going to have the first one, which is on June 27th, and it's going to be hosted by CNN. No fan of Donald Trump. It's going to be moderated by Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, two people that pushed the Russia hoax for about 3 years. So you can already imagine that it's already 3-on-1 to begin with. There's going to be no studio audience. It's going to be held in Atlanta, and the mics are going to be cut. When one talks, the other cannot talk. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will not be allowed there. Now, I think that the Trump folks should have negotiated some better rules, maybe a crowd, maybe not a crowd, but some different rules. But what I would have said is fine. You're going to cut the mics of both candidates, then you should cut the mics of the moderators after they ask the question. Because the last thing I want to see is Donald Trump having to fight Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, who are busy trying to help Joe Biden. Because remember, one of the last times CNN held a presidential debate, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but they gave Hillary Clinton the answers to the questions before the question began.
Yeah, and again, I'd like to see, and what we're talking about is, there's a lot of speculation that the potential VP candidates who is on the short list are going to start to be announced. I'm going to tell you my personal desire is I hope that our man Doug Bergman is on Trump's short list. I do really feel that way.
Let me just say something about Doug. I think he would be a very good vice presidential choice. I know a lot of people don't know a lot about him. Doug Bergman, okay, he's the governor of North Dakota, okay? And not only that, he's a self-made billionaire. And he went to, I believe, Stanford University. I mean, the guy is the whole package. It's just a lot of people don't know a lot about him. And as time's gone on, he's really curried a lot of favor with Trump because Trump goes, oh my gosh, this guy is the total package. Look, whether or not he's VP, I don't know. But I promise you he's going to at least be in the administration if Donald Trump wins, because essentially Doug Bergman is somebody who's run a beautiful state for 5, 6, 7 years, self-made. He's basically the American dream, and all he wants to do is fix things for the people.
Yeah, and the problem is his name recognition outside of the Dakotas is not what it needs to be in a presidential race. However, I can't think of a person. Now, I like Vivek. I want to tell you, I like Vivek a lot. But I think that Doug Bergman would be the better choice going forward after Trump's pick of Pence. I think it's time to reevaluate who you stick in beside you.
Well, let me put it this way. I think in terms of if you're looking for who is most ready to be president of the United States out of the group, all the names, not slandering anybody. This is just the guy that has the experience. He has the tools. I'm not saying the others can't be better, but I'm just saying if you're looking for who's ready right now, the most, he is, because he's been a chief executive. He's been someone who's made his own money. He's someone who understands the way things work and how things need to change.
Well, and sadly, when the original presidential debates was out there, the moderators did quell Doug Bergman quite a bit. They never really let him get his full speech or his platform out there. I think that anybody, if you're not familiar with Doug Bergman, this is the time to get familiar with and find out who Doug Bergman is, because I highly see that being one of Trump's top choices.
Well, I only have one thing for Doug Bergman, and that is he needs to just tweeze his eyebrows. His eyebrows are a little aggressive. Beyond that, I mean, hey, that's optics. That's how this works in politics.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the man's good to go.
Well, Ford, I want you to tell us about what the current polls in the swing states and who they're leaning towards and who should be worried. Well, what are we seeing in the swing state polls?
Well, the latest New York Times Siena poll, the swing state polls. Remember, we often talk about this. There will be essentially 6 states that will decide the entire presidential election. They are Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. I could even narrow it down to say about 19 to 22 counties out of the more than 3,000 in this country will decide who the next president of the United States is. And in 5 of these 6 swing states, Donald Trump is leading in some cases by double digits, which is the best he's ever done, particularly Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. The only state he's trailing right now is Michigan. And in my opinion, of the Midwestern states, that's the state he should be winning because of what Joe Biden's electric vehicle mandate has done to the auto industry and what it's done to blue-collar Michiganders.
Well, I just can't wait to see what we hear next. And I mean, I think Donald Trump will make a good choice. But it really is. I'm leaning so hard to hoping to see this guy. I felt like that he got shortchanged when he was on the platform trying to give out what he thought as a businessman would work for the country. He got totally shut down.
Remember, this is the debates are rigged towards who's the highest in the polls. I mean, that's just how it works. And at the point, as Jeeves made, he had very little name ID. I do think he's a diamond in the rough. You're absolutely right. Let me just say one more thing about these polls. So Trump is leading in 5 of the 6 states that are going to decide this election, whereas obviously in the Southeast and Southwest, he's doing better than he's doing in the Midwest. Remember, Trump historically outperforms what the polls say. Usually the polls have him underperforming his true potential. He's always outperformed the polls, and he's never had better polls than he has right now. And if the election were today, he'd have more than 270 electoral votes, which is what you need to become president of the United States in the Electoral College. And he would be the 47th president of the United States. Never have the polls been this good for him, not even in 2016.
Well, I want to bring up on our national coverage, the last story I want to talk about. Unless you were up late last night, you might have missed this interchange. And I have to say, if you have not found politics entertaining in your life, you're not paying attention. Marjorie Taylor Greene last night, I'm just going to play the clip because it's just, I shortened it, but you get the gist. And this is, to me, I watched the whole thing. I couldn't stop.
Time's expired. Does any other member seek recognition?
Mr.
Chair
Chairman,
recognizes Ms. Greene.
I'd like to know if any of the Democrats on this committee are employing Judge Merchan's daughter.
Please tell me what that has to do with Merrick Garland.
Is she a porn star?
Oh, Goldman. That's right. He's advising. Okay.
He's advising who? What? Do you know what we're here for? You know we're here about AG.
I don't think you know what you're here for.
Well, you the one talking about.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Hold on.
Listen.
Order.
Mr. Chairman, that's beneath even the order of your committee.
Order.
Please. There's a point of order.
We have a point of order. Mr. Lynch, state your point.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to ask the parliamentarian if your conduct here in raising money in connection with this hearing is referable to the Ethics Committee within this hearing. Is a motion in order to refer your conduct and your abuse of
It's not a point of order.
I do have a point of order, and I would like to move to take down Ms. Greene's words. That is absolutely unacceptable. How dare you attack the physical appearance of another person?
Are your feelings hurt?
Her words down.
Aww.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Oh, really?
Don't even play.
Baby girl? I don't think
we are going to move, and we're going to take your words down.
I second that motion.
So who will have to pay it? Okay. All right. We're suspending. The committee will reconvene. Ms. Greene has 4 minutes and 21 seconds. There's a motion. Ms. Greene, do you wish to strike your words?
I have 4 minutes and 21 seconds to speak.
I think we have to do the motion first, and then unless there's another motion, then you'll be recognized again. But I believe there's another motion coming. So you agree to strike your words?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Greene agrees to strike her words.
I believe she should apologize. No.
Perry, okay, hold on. Then after Mr. Perry's going to be recognized, then Ms. Greene
I'm not
has 4 minutes and
apologizing.
21
Well,
seconds.
then you're
reserve
not
the right to
striking your
object.
words.
I am not apologizing.
Now let's go. Come on, guys.
Why don't you debate me?
Mr. Chairman, the minority.
Pretty self-evident.
You're not.
Yeah, you're
out
not.
of order.
You don't have enough
You're out of order.
intelligence.
Chair recognizes Mr. Perry.
Okay, move to strike the.
I move to strike
the
those
lady's
words as well.
words.
I would like to strike
the lady's words again.
That's 2 requests to strike. That's 2 requests to strike.
Oh, they cannot take the
There's
words.
another motion to strike her words again. Please
All right,
get
okay,
your members under
here's the
control.
correct priority. Ms. Greene, do you agree to unanimous consent to strike your words?
I repeat again for the second time. Yes, I'll strike
right.
my words,
That-
but I'm not
all right.
apologizing.
Without objection.
Not
Objection.
apologizing.
Reserving the right to
No,
object.
Chairman, I
reserve the right to object.
recognizes Mr.
I
Perry.
reserve the right to object.
Chairman, I move that Mr. Goldman's words and Ms. Ocasio-Cortez's words be stricken.
Okay.
Which words? And you have to do it contemporary.
Okay, so I mean, look, that was just a gift that wouldn't quit giving last night. And I'm sitting there typing the show, and I'm thinking, God, this is just too good to stop watching. But man, I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sorry.
Well, look, this is basically Jerry Springer meets Mean Girls, Capitol Hill edition. And let me tell you something, fasten your seatbelt. It's a presidential election year. It's going to get a lot more testy up on Capitol Hill. This was a contempt hearing to hold Merrick Garland in contempt because Joe Biden refuses to release the Robert Hur tapes, the one where they call him a feeble old man, because if everyone hears that, Joe Biden's going to lose the presidential election. You already got 80% of America saying he's too old to serve another 4 years. What Marjorie Taylor Greene was taking a jab at was the fact that Juan Merchan, the judge against Trump, a lot of people on that committee employ her daughter to raise money for them. And the fact of the matter is that essentially Merrick Garland's quarterbacking this trial too down in Manhattan because he sent Matthew Coangelo from his office down there to run it. So the whole idea is, yes, it does tie into holding Merrick Garland in contempt. It's just the Democrats trying to pretend like none of this is actually happening.
Well, and I want to say, and I can't help but it just stays in my mind when I heard Marjorie Taylor Greene make that comment about her eyelashes.
Yeah, that was the gal from Texas. I think her name's Crockett.
Yeah. For me and you are fortunate enough to have beautiful wives that really don't need all the spackling and the paste and the extra thing. But every time I see these women with these big, huge eyelashes, and I don't know why they think they look attractive, I always tell people, go back and understand what they were originally invented for, and then you tell me you want your wife still wear them. And I'll leave it at that.
I really have nothing to add to that.
I just can't. It's the first thing that goes to my mind. I'm like, I wouldn't want my wife wearing something. I know what they didn't invent eyelashes for beauty. That just didn't happen.
Styles change in and out, my friend. I mean, I critique enough things. I don't need to weigh in on this one.
Well, yeah, I want people to look it up because I don't come out being the crude one. But yeah, that was last night. I just couldn't get over them. Marjorie Taylor said, and look, I like Marjorie. Look, I'm a lot like Marjorie. I say stuff. Yeah, I made a comment about Tiffany Esposito, and the people in the know knew what I was talking about. I'm like that, but everybody that watched that last night is talking about what Marjorie Taylor Greene said last night. The same thing.
That's exactly right, but also the fact that she tangled with AOC, that, of course, drove up the, how shall I say, viral value.
Oh, baby girl.
I'll just say this. I've got 50-1 on Marjorie Taylor Greene against AOC in a fight.
My goodness. Marjorie Taylor, that fiery Georgia Bulldog, Marjorie Taylor Greene grab a hold of AOC, she'd snap her like a twig.
I give her 3-1 against me. So,
I wouldn't tussle with her. Well, Ford, it's
the man's trash.
What we get to every day is the man's trash. I want to talk about, there's a lot of money being spent to start to rebuild things that after the Ian and the hurricane things. And one that popped up on my screen is the new Sanibel Police Department. And I spent a lot of my life in Sanibel, and I've never noticed a lot of crime in Sanibel. I'm going to play a small clip from Sanibel Police Department and what they're fixing to build in Sanibel. And does it make sense?
This is the Sanibel Recycling Center now, but soon it could be home to the city's new police headquarters. I'm Sanibel community correspondent Anvar Ruziev. I spend a lot of time on the island, so I wanted to know how the people who are still recovering from Ian feel about the $13 million facility. Walking down the quiet island streets, the neighbors here tell me that safety hasn't been a concern to them.
I feel very safe on the island.
That's why neighbors like Diane and Rich are questioning why the island needs such a significant investment to improve safety.
Do we have the money to spend for that kind of a facility? And secondly, would that money be better spent in a different way for Sanibel coming back from a hurricane?
Only $1 million have been secured for the facility so far. Now City Council unanimously approved the design. The city's next step is applying for more than $150 million in federal grants for projects across the island, including this one. The Sanibel police chief pushed for the project at the City Council meeting.
I can't really anticipate what the exact needs are going to be 20 or 30 years down the road, but I do feel this building will serve the needs of the community for probably 50 more years.
I asked the city why the police department needed the new 3-story facility, and they explained to me that the new facility will also act as a base of operations if there's another hurricane. During Ian, the first floor of their current headquarters was destroyed, and as you see here, there's little room left for them to work in now. While I walked on the island, I met Dane Wilson. His father used to be a Sanibel police officer, and he's on board with the investment.
I think it's fantastic. I know they've outgrown that facility up there. To me, they truly do need a separate building.
And there would be a lot more space in the new 20,000 square foot building with locker rooms, gyms, training areas, and armories.
Ford, I understand they probably need a police station in Sanibel. But my father being in the banking industry, Sanibel and Captiva had the best plan for any type of robbery or crime set up from day one. All they do, you walk in and you rob one of those banks, unless you're in a boat, that bridge is up until they catch you. That was the way the law was set and wrote. Do they really need to invest that kind of money in such a safe, and granted, one of the safest places, in my opinion, in all of Southwest Florida is Captiva.
Yeah, well, I was going to just say the only places that have less crime, most likely, just off the top of my head, other than Sanibel, is Boca Grande and Captiva. I can't imagine anyone else, being better than that, because Sanibel is about as safe as comes. Look, I think this is always what happens. Obviously, they're going to need a new police station. Do they need one of this size? I don't know. And I think the real question out there was asked by one of the residents is this the best use of the money? We always hear things and, we need this, we need that. And, then you get little forces in there, a lot of bureaucracy that start pushing for things.
Yeah, I agree. I think $13 million. I know we're out there in the elite of the elite. You got to make things look fancy. I think for a third of the price, you could probably make an efficient headquarters to house what they need to deal with. They don't need a jailhouse out there more than one cell. I mean, they're going to get somebody for drinking and driving at the most. I mean,
that an open container. I mean, what? An open container isn't even a crime in Sanibel. So I agree with you. I mean, let's be generous. For half that, I think you could get what you need. But again, this is unfortunately what happens. And then remember, it's going to drive up taxes. Every time we spend like this, remember, you got to rob Peter to pay Paul.
And this goes right back to why I have really pressed the issue on single member districts. If you go to single member districts, you're going to have a commissioner for Sanibel who's going to push for that brand new $13 million police headquarters, whether they need it or not. And the money's there. And the one resident said, do we have the money? well, yeah, we know you got the money in those areas. But that's going to take money in grants, and it's going to come away from what goes into other parts of the county. If you're going to invest that kind of money into a police department, you need to set the damn thing down in the middle of Lehigh. I mean, just be honest.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've talked about the single district, scam, because what it's going to wind up doing is having a greater disparity between the haves and the have-nots. Your Boca Grands, your Sanibels, your Barefoot Beach, you're going to get everything. And everyone else isn't going to get anything. And this is pretty much where we are. And that's what you have to worry about. We've always talked about District 5, sort of what we'll call, where Alva, Lehigh Acres, and on the way in. That's the area that needs the most stuff to be improvement, because remember, Lee County only goes as far as its weakest area. And that is the weakest area. And that area is the one that needs more resources, but it doesn't get more resources, does it?
Well, and that's the thing, the single member district thing, and it's the people that are pushing it are absolutely the people you think would be fighting it the hardest. You have the property appraiser, Mike Caldwell, who is going to BUPAC and everyone else, and he's preaching the greatness of single member districts and how we need to do this for the betterment of our county. He's the property appraiser. Why is he even involved in this right here?
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. That is my advice to you right there, because he's going to drive up the property value in some places. That's exactly how this scam works.
It's just unbelievable. I do want to talk about the Lee County School District fights continues with the parents' choice to opt out on questionable reading materials, things that have pornographic materials. Look, they've been pushing this for months. They set up special committee meetings. They have I think an agreeable solution where you can opt that your children not be able to check out any books that are deemed inappropriate, or your children can have the librarian or whatever aid they've got. If you haven't checked that they can check anything they want out, they can call and insist. It is a total opt-out. 25% of parents apparently has not chose either way. So then those are the 25% of parents that's children don't need to be checking out those books unless somebody picks up the phone and says, hey, Johnny wants to read about Billy and Bobby spending the night in the tent and doing dirty things. Are you okay with that? That's not what they want. The Purple People group has pushed this to where if it's not there, just let them read whatever. And I totally disagree with it. I think it's time to move on. Ron DeSantis has already weighed in on this, and I don't understand why we are still having the same debate. Is it not time to move to something different? And we only have one board, well, two, but one main board member that's pushing it the hardest, and that is Chris Patrica. And I just don't understand it for him.
Well, I do. Unfortunately, look, this is all about what is age appropriate. You listen outside of Florida, they say we're banning books, just like that Don't Say Gay bill that had nothing to do with being gay. This is exactly how the left works. And essentially, it's what is age appropriate. Remember, at the end of the day, everybody needs to be learning the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and they don't need to be learning at a young age about sexual orientation and gender. Let's just be honest. And I always tell people, especially till you get to high school, I said, there's two things I never want to know about my teacher: their political position and their sexual orientation. After that, you're free to teach whatever you're not.
Well, and another thing that I found appropriate, I've got the emails, and I'm going to put them out there like I've always said. If I'm going to say it, I'm going to have the receipts. Cheryl Fooch, and that's Futch, and she works in Tommy Doyle's office. She sent a letter at how appalled she was by the members against and their outrage against this this question of whether the children should be allowed to see the books. Look, I listened to that whole thing. First off, the school district is the one chose not to put audio and video. They allowed video that they chose. They should document everything, not just for the people's safety, for their own safety. So when we hear these liars like Chris Patrica act like that you had a madhouse brawl going in there when you just had a few heightened voices, we can see. We don't have to take a liar's word for it. But the problem I have, she put that on used the letterhead and signed that from the office of Tommy Doyle's office. Is this ethical, and is it legal?
I don't know if it's legal, but I can tell you it's certainly unethical. You're not supposed to use your office or the office that you work in, the letterhead, to push a political position. That is everywhere. So if you want to say as an individual, I'm appalled by this, that's fine. But when you start using the supervisor of elections letterhead, that's not good, nor is it right.
Yeah, I just find it to me, it seems like you're using your authority with the electoral office to push your will on the board. That's what it sounds to me like. That's what I would have took it as.
Look, I agree with you. This should be looked into. If what you're alleging is true, somebody should at least get a slap on the hand, because you cannot have people using their political office or one that they work in for personal vendettas.
And while we're on this, and I didn't bring this up, I mean, you talked about this last week, I still have a complaint about the fact that with the public not having any concrete knowledge from the school district or anybody else, the absence of Dr. Christopher Bernier and him leaving his position and his breach of contract. Now, there's at least 3 lawyers, Sam Fisher being one of them. I'm not saying they're good lawyers, but there's 3 lawyers on that board. Okay. Now, I've never claimed to be a legal mastermind, but I understand contract law. And a breach of agreement is a breach of agreement. You don't pay the rest of the man's contract out when he's the one that breached the agreement. What are they doing? Why is this? How is this legal?
I've got a feeling that there's probably a backdoor deal on this. I don't know, but there must be a backdoor deal on this where it's like we're just going to barter our ways. And to your point, there's three lawyers on there. They may, whether they're good lawyers or not, I can't speak to that, but you hope at least 3 of them make one competent lawyer.
Well, and the school board's attorney made some kind of comment about he's got a clause in this contract. No, the renegotiation clause don't work once you've breached it. You walked away. You didn't fulfill your agreement. It is not, should not be out of the rest of us taxpayers to pay a salary for a job that you were incompetent in. You got hot-headed. You used bad language to some of your subordinates, and you had to leave.
That's the point, is paying him not to work. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and then I still don't think it's legal that they put in interim superintendent liberal Kenneth Savage. I don't think that without the governor weighing in, I don't think that was proper. I mean, it's an elected. Once it was voted elected, I don't care if it starts next election or whatever. Once it was a voted elected official, the person in that office, once he's gone, the next person needs to be elected, or the governor needs to have some say in it.
Look, I agree with you. You know why they were scrambling when they did this, okay? And they said, well, who did we use last time? Savage. So, and I agree with you. The position's changed to elected now, and this needs to be done by the governor, or another body, not just Lee County Schools.
Well, I wanted to talk to you also about the Lee Health Systems, and this is not going to just be Lee Health, but it's coming, the privatization or the nonprofit. Which will it improve your health services or will it hinder? I have an opinion for it. I mean, I just recently was in the hospital day before yesterday. And I'm not going to lie to you. I have normally when I go to the hospital, I'm treated quite well. I don't complain. I went in there. I didn't want to go. I had a doctor tell me to go to the emergency room. So I go. I sat in there. Now, heart patient. I've never walked into a hospital emergency room when as soon as I tell them my history, I'm straight back. I sat for 3.5 hours waiting to see the doctor in a hall. Then I was put in the chair in a hallway. I got shoved into a room to get blood work done where there was 3, and I'm talking about when I say the room was a closet, it was a closet. There was 3 techs doing blood work in here, and I'm sitting there looking around. Look, I worked with the state years ago on the sterile fields for body piercing and the proper ways that you are to perform that type of procedure, which is basically a surgical procedure. I help with the laws. I'm looking around in this lab where this guy's poking me and drawing blood and all this, and right by the, there's a bio waste container, needle sharps container, this and that. There's a sink. Sitting in front of the sink is 3 or 4 different open food items that they're eating in what is supposed to be a sterile field. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. And then I start looking around and I look and there's like insects on the floor. And this is a Lee Health System. And I don't complain. And somebody had smushed the bug, smeared it, and left it, didn't know housekeeping. I see soiled like screens that they were so yellow they looked like they come out of Gilly's bar back in the 80s. And I'm sitting there like, man, and why is this happening? Because I've had procedures at this same hospital and never felt that way.
Well, great reference to Gillies. The only thing you were missing with Gillies was the mechanical bull. Okay. I'm very worried in general about the healthcare and the hospitals that are in Lee County, just in general. And the reason why I say that is because we have an older community. Let's just be honest. We have an older community that's going to be more likely to need treatment. And I'm going to tell you something. I've been in a lot of these hospitals myself, family members too. I'm not thrilled with the quality of care we have, particularly when it comes to your point, the emergency room. But every time the emergency room, even in Collier, it's a huge problem. And I worry about it, unless you're having a heart attack on the spot or it's a gunshot wound, you're going to be a little leery of the treatment that you're getting.
And again, and this is the thing I'm saying is I seen the people who were getting treated. I seen a guy that apparently got stuck in the back of his leg and had blood run down the back, and it wasn't nearly as bad as something my daughter would have done out here in the yard. But I'm thinking, okay, whatever. But what brought me to this, I got into a room with a clinician. He said he had joined first into a privatization hospital. And he said the reason he left hospitals was privatized because the lack of care goes down. Because it's all about how much more money they can make, not how much more quality of service they can provide the patients. He said, that is the reason I chose to leave a privatized hospital and go to one like that is a nonprofit. And he said, I'm scared to death. He said, if they go, what do I do?
Well, this is a lot bigger than a Lee County problem. This is actually an American problem overall. And by the way, remember, if the ambulance takes you to the ER, you might get a bill for that too. And that's just separate of everything else. Remember, we have a big problem. And I got to step back for a second. The problem is the insurance companies, the hospitals, and Big Pharma are all in cahoots. And at the end of the day, this isn't about altruism. Yes, you have the Hippocratic Oath to save people, but it is a money-making operation. And a lot of people don't realize that. And once again, if they can't make the money, the quality of treatment's going to go down. Now, some people can get it, but what I always tell people is some of these people, like, let's say you're really wealthy. You think that, okay, I'm paying 10 times more than everybody else, the health insurance, everything else. You're still not even getting the treatment you're paying for when you are rich. The whole thing is terrible all around.
And why do we have representatives like Adam Botana pushing for this?
That's a great question. I think you should take that up with your state representatives.
Well, I just think that you need to learn more what this is all about. This is not going to benefit the average citizen in our area or in any area. Once it goes to privatization, then they're going to get money. They're going to get your money anyway. They're going to get it for grants, federal grants, and everything else. Leave them as an NPO. Leave them as an organization where they still getting the grants, but at least they can use the grants for what they want. They're not geared toward having to use it exactly the way, because it is privatized the way that the new privatized laws say they have to be spent.
My whole concern has always been the ER experience. That is my whole issue. Look, this is something we always talk about this. Everyone goes, who do I talk to about this? Your county commissioners, your state representatives. County commissioners, state representatives. That is who, basically has the most power over your day-to-day life.
Well, yeah, I think we're going to be talking much more on that. I've got a lot of emails I'm going through. I really don't understand. I mean, I just don't understand a man that didn't graduate high school having more sense than the medical doctors telling me it's a bad idea to privatize, and he's a state rep that's telling everybody we need to privatize. I mean, I'm going to err on caution and go with the medical professionals on this one.
Hey, again, this is something we're probably going to be talking about for quite some time, my friend.
Well, I wanted to talk. I got a phone call from one of Byron Donald's and I guess now Donald Trump's advisors, Larry Wilcoxson. Larry Wilcoxson has always been more than willing to come on the show and talk to us. And I've known Larry for more years than I can count. Larry Wilcoxson called me the other day and he was excited. And he had threw his hat into the ring for a state committee man. And he went on Trey's show, your buddy Trey Radle's show. And I mean, he was excited. I was excited for him. Okay. I mean, he was so pumped up that he was actually going to throw his hat in this ring, and people had encouraged him to do it. And I told him, I said, yeah, we'll bring you on, Larry. He no sooner done Trey's show is he yanked that hat right back out of the ring. And so, of course, you got to discuss who's your remaining candidates. Well, now you got Andrew Sund, who Andrew Sund means nothing to me in the political world. Andrew Sund's he's just a piece of flesh that shows up to meetings. I'm sorry, that's the way I see it. And then you got Mike Thompson, and I know Mike Thompson's health is not great, and I don't think Mike Thompson was going to. Mike Thompson, my understanding, was going to pull out because Larry was running. Now we're stuck. What are we stuck with? Are we going to have a race with nobody running now except for Andrew Sund?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Mike Thompson and Andrew Sund run for Lee County REC chair? Yep. Essentially, this is a rematch. I mean, that's where you're at. I mean, I can't speak to why Larry pulled his hat out of it. I understand that if Larry had been in there, Larry probably would have been the favorite. There's no question about it. But again, unfortunately, we're recycling the same people, and that's kind of the problem.
That's Lee County. And people understand that when I say all we do is.
And that's nothing against Mike Thompson or Andrew Sund. It's just that same people.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, as far as Andrew's son, I just see him as another one of the Millerite Doris, yes men. That's the way I see Andrew's son.
I think the Millerite connection is well noted with Andrew's son.
And when you go with Mike, and again, I know a lot of people, I get a lot of heat every time I mention his name. Either you like Mike or you hate Mike, but the truth is if he's beholden to somebody, it ain't Terry Miller. Not in my opinion.
Well, you know how the one thing I speak out, I try never to pick favorites in these races. I just speak out against those who are represented by Terry Miller so that everyone knows who's being represented by Terry Miller, because once they get into the office or that position, whatever that position may be, they're not going to be acting in your best interest. They're going to be acting in Terry Miller's lobbying best interest.
Well, we're kind of moving down the end of the show. I do want to, some RECs have started to endorse candidates. And I know that I've only endorsed 2 candidates thus far, and I've talked to Ford about it. One is in Hendry County, who is Sean Phillips for property appraiser. The other is in Collier County, who is James Molinar, who is also running for property appraiser in Collier County. I do know that Roger Stone and Alfie Oak has endorsed Tara Jenner, who is the vice chair of the Lee County REC, as state committee woman. Now, I like a lot of people in that race. However, some have pulled out from my understanding. However, I think by far Tara has the time and the know-how and the will to put the work in to do the job. And at this time, no offense to none of the other people that were running for that position, I am going to support and endorse Tara Jenner for state committee woman this time. And Alfie did, Roger Stone did. Who knows? Maybe Trump will. But I know, we've talked about your position. It's hard for you to endorse anybody. And I understand.
I got to stay away from all endorsements. But here's what I will say: you're right. I think when it comes to Tara Jenner, she's somebody who works hard. She's a lawyer. She knows, what she's doing, and she is very driven. So, I mean, that's what most I can say about that without showing any favoritism.
Yeah, and not only was she a lawyer, she was a JAG attorney. I mean, it goes a little more in depth than just, she wasn't no ambulance chaser. Let's just say that. Unlike some of our opportunists.
They work for Morgan & Morgan?
Well, now look, you brought that up, and I was going to go in down there. I went to a meeting Sunday, was it last Sunday? The grassroots candidates had a meeting in the Estero. And so I sat down there and I listened. I will give Denise Nystrom, and she does a newsletter. It is lengthy, but it is worth it. Sit down. I mean, if you've got some time, sit down, read it in segments, whatever it takes. She puts out a lot of good information on some of these candidates. And she did do a great breakdown of how the Terry Miller and the cabal have controlled Lee County politics, how they now have 2 candidates in Collier County. They're moving, they're branching out, they're trying to get into Charlotte County. And so now, you really got to understand that how it works. And most of these grassroots candidates have no clue. And me and you talked about this. At that meeting, I was very impressed with most of the people that spoke. And when you brought up Morgan & Morgan, that young man, he don't really talk about it, maybe for whatever reason, but the one that's running for school board, this Josh Melendez, he was an attorney, a high-paid attorney for Morgan & Morgan. But in order to be an attorney for Morgan & Morgan, you're required to donate to liberal causes, and he could not do it. He left because he refused to donate to liberal causes, as per he was instructed from that attorney firm. So I'm going to tell you something. He's got my vote. I haven't endorsed him. I mean, I might as well say I'm going to endorse him, but I mean, I don't see nobody else in that race that I would support other than him. And hats off to him for having the guts to stand up and walk away from that type of job.
Yeah, John Morgan, who's the head of Morgan & Morgan, is the biggest Democrat pretty much in Florida, and one of the biggest Democratic donors, not only in Florida, but also in the country. And, that's a great paying job. That takes a lot of, resolve to really follow the principles. So, I hear you again. I got to stay away from these endorsements. But, one thing that's important to know is it amazes me how little most people in the county know about Terry Miller and the cabal. And a lot of these candidates get up there, they like, I'm going to go and do civic duty. I said, you got to understand what's about to happen here. Well, after qualifying, Terry Miller is going to get all his Miller candidates, and they're going to endorse each of these other little candidates separately to drive up some gusto, because people will say, well, I know who's in office. They like them. I like them too. This is how this little game is played. Then he's going to run a few positive ads. And then there's going to be a few polls. And if you're getting any traction, then he's going to come after you with 3 weeks to go and try to take the bark off your reputation by, let me just tell everyone, if you got a criminal record, you better know exactly what your weak spot is, because Terry Miller's going to find it.
Well, and again, and that goes back to some of these candidates that we're talking to, and these grassroots candidates. I feel really bad for them, because a lot of people think I go sign up and this and that, and then, I just see where the chips fall. It don't work that way. And for what is some of these new candidates, there's some things they should have been doing already. And if they're not, what do they need to start doing today?
Well, qualifying is coming up, so you better be knocking on doors. You better be getting ready with your mailers. You better even be setting up a pack for your negative mailers against some of the Terry Miller candidates, because you'll say, hey, I'm not going to run a negative race. That's not how Terry Miller operates. He only runs a negative race. That's exactly what he does, and he's going to get all the Millerites, the other candidates, to actually start a whisper campaign about you, so that by the time you're done, your neighbor hates you.
Well, and I think that, and there's several candidates that I'm looking at, and I tell everybody, as far as saying endorsement, I haven't got to the point where I'm endorsing. I'm telling people these are the candidates I think you need to look at. I've talked to you, and I think that Matthew Thornton, who is running against Dave Mulliken, my platform is, I hope that Matt Thornton, and I feel like Matt Thornton's got the money to run a successful campaign, and he is a Floridian by birth, Matt's got money, and you automatically think, well, these people that's got money, they're just like the rest of the people that's got money. I've had several conversations. I don't know where he's at, but you got to look at the candidate. He is, sometimes you say the devil well, the devil we know has already contaminated our groundwater with toxic and chemical waste. He has exposed our waterways to cancer-causing carcinogens, who later on, some of these children out here fishing off the 10-mile canal or whatever, going to eat some kind of fish that's got probably 8 eyeballs because of this candidate, Dave Mulliken. And then just come across you can come across stuff with him. They play this up. His wife is his coup de grace. If he was not married to State Representative Jenna Persons, I don't think he would stand a chance in this race. And
wait, who's his father-in-law again?
His father-in-law is Armor Persons.
Are you telling me nepotism is why he might be the candidate that Terry Miller is representing?
Well, it's definitely, and he's definitely the reason he's got the endorsements from every cabal or establishment candidate or every Millerite candidate is. But I'm looking back from and there's an article come out come out on the 15th this year, 2004, 15th of May. And I have the sworn affidavit, and I'm going to put it out there, who says that Dave Mullica has, under oath, stated that he is over $1 million in debt, and he's losing $6,500 a month. And but now he's running for county commissioner on a platform for fiscal responsibility. Ford, how can you be both running on a platform for fiscal responsibility and have destroyed, and I don't know why Captains for Clean Water and every environmental organization in Southwest Florida ain't raising holy hell over toxic dumper Malika, but we have no choice, and we gotta hope Matt Thornton pulls up and comes to fight this fight. And I told Matt Thornton on the phone, I talked to him for 3.5 hours, you're going to have to be a warrior, and it's time for you to put your big boy britches on and tell him to kiss your ass today.
Well, I would say that you pretty much said it all. Again, you have to be smarter than me to figure out how you can run on fiscal accountability and discipline when obviously your books are upside down. The other thing I'd say is, remember, Maine County Commissioner is going to open him up, Mullica, the ability to get some more contracts. It might make those books go north.
And why will these county commissioners, there's maybe two that I feel like I'll talk to reasonably, but why would these guys not come back? We've exposed it. We've got the proof. We've got the evidence. We've got the evidence from the organization, government organization, proving everything we've said about Dave Mullica. Why would these candidates not come back and say, look, we jumped the gun. We shouldn't endorse this guy. Maybe we should have vetted it better, but they will not do it. And I've asked them, I said, well, would you rescind your endorsement of Dave Mullica after what you found out? Well, I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that before. No, what you're saying is, hell no, you won't. You're scared. You're scared of what it'll do to your political career. And that is the problem. We need people that are men and not cowards running for office. And we have a bunch of job-scared cowards and afraid of what this one might think about them and what gala they might not be invited to if they don't step up for somebody like Dave Mullica. And that is an embarrassment to the entire state.
You said it all, my friend. I got nothing else to say.
I hate to put you on the spot with things like it, because I know.
But look, the reason why they're not going to rescind the endorsement is because Terry Miller, in most cases, also represents them. Terry Miller is the seal of approval, and therefore they're going to ride or die because Terry Miller tells them to. Let's be honest. That's what's going on here. Because if it wasn't for Terry Miller, okay, some of them would probably say something, and that would be normal. You should speak up about the problems with certain camps, because I always tell you, the most important positions in Lee County are the county commissioners. These are the most important positions. But all of a sudden, someone runs. Terry's got a new person. I mean, the previous guy, Terry appointed him too. I mean, my God, this is how this continue goes. I mean, I'm not knocking Ray Sandelli, but I'm just going to tell you, he got appointed. It's Mike Greenwell got appointed. I mean, it's amazing how this continues to go on. But everyone goes, well, I didn't know that. Well, guess what? If you don't pay attention to your community, stuff like this happens.
And it is showing. And sadly, Mike Greenwell, all of his constituents, at every outing I've been, so we don't even see the guy. He don't show up. We see him if he's on a board meeting or doing a presser. That's it. So he's really not done nothing for the area that he is supposedly to help make a better living for the residents, and I just don't see Dave Mullica doing anything more than making his life a little bit better.
Yeah, well, I think those are great points raised, and the voters need to pay attention and be aware of that. Ask them what they're going to do for you, not what they're going to do for themselves.
And again, I'm with, like Ford said, hey, it's time for you guys to get out and door knock. You conservative candidates, you know, my phone's always open, and Ford knows this. I'll talk to anybody, whether you like me, whether you hate me. I'll give you my honest, true advice on this. But if you don't start fighting now, you might as well quit wasting the people's time and effort.
You said it, my man.
Well, Ford, I appreciate you again. You got anything else going on?
No, just watching this trial all the way through, hoping for a Trump acquittal, a hung jury, anything where you could actually stick it back at the mainstream media and realize how they're in coordination to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't become the 47th president of the United States.
And I'll just have to say the one soundbite I'm going to take away of Ford O'Connell this week, and if anybody ain't heard it, can go back and listen to Ford on Trey Radle's show. The amigo, the man's ego is not his amigo, was probably one of the funniest lines I've heard said.
And that seems to be true. Michael Cohen's ego was not his amigo on cross-examination, and heck, it's still going on the cross-examination. That's the problem. You get some of these lawyers on the witness stand and they think they're smarter than the lawyer that's asking questions. This is why lawyers should never represent themselves.
I agree. Well, Ford, I always appreciate you joining us. I look forward to our next conversation. Stay in touch. Let us know if you find anything out we need to know before our next visit. And folks, we love you, Florida. Love, peace, and gator grease. For Ford O'Connell, I'm Smokin Joe with the Cracker Culture Podcast. We'll see you soon.